All right, welcome back to the Shifting Schools podcast. Trisha!
Jeff.
It was great to record this episode with you. If you're joining us for the first time, you caught us this summer in our mini-series all about the power of play. And if we're saying each other's names weird, it's because we just got done recording an amazing episode with Hayes Greenfield. Trisha, tell us a little bit more about Hayes and the experience we just had and that listeners are going to have in this episode today.
Yeah, the series is The Power of Play. Jeff and I definitely get playful in this episode with an emphasis on sound. And that's because this week's special guest is Hayes Greenfield, who happens to be the founder of Creative Sound Play, which is a sound-based generative learning system for pre-K. He's also an award-winning jazz musician, a notable film composer, and an educator. He's got a brand new book out this summer. It's called Creative Sound Play for Young Learners. You'll be able to learn more about it by heading over to the show notes. Hayes invites educators to think about sound making as a collaborative, educational, playful experience. And he asked you and I to join him in this episode. So listeners, I think you're going to hear some of the strangest sounds that Jeff and I have ever made in an episode before. So be sure to listen out for that.
That's great. No, it's a great episode, and it was great to be playful with him. We've been talking all summer long here about being playful, and to be able to do that in an episode, and just even to have a new appreciation for sound. And even you in this episode talk about your favorite, like you have favorite sounds. And I would love listeners to be thinking about, as you're going through this, what are those sounds that either are calming for you during the day? For Trisha, you talk about your coffee maker in the morning. It's just
love that sound.
I love that sound. Yeah, it's just the sound that tells you, hey, not only is my coffee done, but I'm going to guess there's probably other things that are just like my day can begin. I'm ready for the caffeine hit. There's just sounds that we have in our day. One of the things for me is we have a fountain in our front yard. And usually, especially this time of year, we go outside around 3 or 4 o'clock, take the cats out for an afternoon. But sitting in the front yard, listening to that fountain is like one of the most calming things for me. It is my sound that tells me my day's done. Like I don't work after that. So it's really interesting as we talk and as you listen to today's episode, be thinking about this idea of how do sounds play into that and what does that mean for our kids in learning as well. And Hayes gets into some really good ways that you can start incorporating this in really small ways in your classroom.
Yeah, again, a very creative approach. And I think reminded me a little bit of Jeff, how we feel about learning in general. Whenever we're talking to folks about learning about AI, which is what we've been talking a lot about lately, we talk about how crucial it is that you get playful, that you get experimental. And Hayes mentions multiple times in the episode, remove the judgment, right? You and I have heard folks say all too often, oh, I'm not a quote tech person. And it's remove that judgment. And I think in part that's what nudged us to design what's been our most recent asynchronous pathway. That's our foundational AI literacy course. And we wanted to remind people, if you are interested in taking that course, we love to try to reward listeners of the podcast. There's a promo code in the show notes where you can take $25 off that course. It's all caps, SPOD25. Again, you'll find it over there in the show notes if you want to check that out.
Yeah, and remember all summer long, if you are doing some professional learning, we've got all kinds of things. That code, SSPOD25, works for everything over at Shifting Schools. So head over to Shifting Schools, click on the Learn With Us, and everything that you see there, you can take $25 off the price that is there. Also, you can join us over at camp.shiftingschools. That is our social network where we continue to have conversations. Specifically, right now, like you said, we're focused on a lot of AI work. But we also have conversations about different podcast episodes too. So join us over there to learn more as well. Just different ways to connect with us. So we're excited. But remember, you can do that anytime. SSPOD25 saves you $25 on anything over there at Shifting Schools. I'm excited to get you over to this interviews with Hayes Greenfield. But before we do that, here's a quick word from today's show sponsors.
Discover the power of acknowledgement with Libra. In a world where every staff member's dedication shapes the future, recognizing their efforts becomes our mission. Libra transforms your school into a place where achievements, big and small, are celebrated daily, creating a ripple effect of motivation and pride. Join the recognition revolution with Libra, where every achievement is a cause for celebration. For more information and a free demo, contact me at jeff@shiftingschools.com today.
Librarians, meet MacEnvision, the future of library management. With a student-centered design, MacEnvision's intuitive interface and seamless navigation ensures that your students find the information they need quickly and effortlessly. Discover how MacEnvision can transform your school at macen.com/MacEnvision. All right. And with that, Trisha,
Jeff.
we're ready to go. Here is Hayes Greenfield, founder of the Creative Sound Play.
Thank you for being with us today. You wear many hats. You're an activist, an educator, a musician. You're also founder of Creative Sound Play. So I'm going to ask you maybe to pick one of the hats and tell our listeners, what is one myth about play that you want to correct, that you would love to challenge in the work that you do?
Okay, first of all, I want to say to you, Trisha and Jeff, thank you very much for having me and allowing me this opportunity to share with your audience what I do. Okay, I'm wonderful to be here. So, what is a myth about play? I don't know. Play is essential. Play is essential for learning in terms of creative sound play for children. It's the best way to learn anything, really, is through play, because it makes it possible for you to be receptive, be open, engage. It's inspiring. It's not about pressure. It's about being in the moment, right? If we're really playing and we're really listening, we're having fun and we're interacting and we're developing our social emotional learning and making good decisions. Play is about providing opportunity for children to enjoy themselves. And the way it works with creative sound play is that creative sound play completely plugs into the one thing that every child absolutely adores doing. Part of our DNA, right? It's making sound. Children make sound alone, or they make sound with each other, with groups. So making sound is by nature is collaboration. And children don't have to learn anything new. They don't have to develop any special skills. All they have to do is just be themselves. And with play and with sound, it's all of a sudden, if we look at, let me back up just for a second, because I think what adults, when they hear the word sound, 99% of the time they think of music. And sound has nothing to do with music. Sound comes before anything we can call music, right? Sound is sound is somebody mowing the lawn, the lawnmower, a car honking, a dog barking. Sound is somebody singing in the shower, kids playing. Sound is somebody playing a bass, but it's a car horn. It's a car. It's ubiquitous. It's the wind blowing. It's the waters lapping on the wave, the waves lapping on the ocean side. And my biggest challenge is getting adults and teachers to realize that they are completely capable of working with sound. Because pre-K teachers are my heroes. And it's because they don't go into it for the money. They go into it for the passion. They go into it because they want to make a difference. They want to teach children. And they take their job extremely seriously because they understand the ramification that they are the first official teacher in somebody's life. And that comes with it a sense of responsibility as to how that person, how that little person may feel about themselves in terms of being a good learner or a good listener. And if a teacher doesn't know about music and they're hearing the word sound, they're saying, oh, we're going to do this with creative sound playing. They're thinking of it as music, and they don't play an instrument and they've never studied it. They love music, and music is the closest thing to magic. I'm a musician, I know this. But if a teacher doesn't have that background, they become overwhelmed because they think I'm asking them or somebody's asking them to teach music. And it has nothing to do with it. And because they start to shut down like they should. It'd be like somebody saying to me, okay, you're going to have to fill this cavity in this person's mouth. Okay, give me the drill, y'all. But so sound, when teachers realize this, so it's really not about what the myth is really about. The myth is in their head thinking, oh my goodness, sound is music. And it's not. It's sound is pitch. Can you give me a high pitch sound? Great. And now can you give me a low pitch sound? Beautiful. Now can you give me a loud sound? Now can you give me a quiet sound? Oh, that's good. Now can you give me a long sound? Beautiful. And now can you give me a short sound? Perfect. So that's all we're talking about. All we're talking about is pitch, volume, and duration. And and everything in between. So high to low, loud to quiet, short to long, and anywhere in between. And when you start to provide teachers with those concepts, they start to realize they can embrace sound and make it possible for the children to embrace sound.
I love that. We have been interviewing a lot of people around this idea of play, and I love the creative sound play that you're a part of. One of the things we're trying to tap into as we're here in June and July, the summer months for teachers, is the research around play is very conclusive that it's a huge benefit for us across all ages, not just for kiddos. What would you like to see more of when it comes to making play more accessible for even us in our adult lives?
Now you're plugging into a whole other thing. because I have to say that creative sound play works for pre-K. It works for special needs. Actually, my work with special needs, which is like informed me. And I've also had the opportunity to do some stuff with some very smart corporate people. And it works, and it can work, with corporate executives and adults and other people, because it's really about listening. Okay? Sound and even play is about listening. Play is like interacting. So even if you think about sports, when you think about two tennis players playing, they're interacting with each other. Teams are interacting with each other. They're playing, and it's, as a jazz musician, it's all about, we develop our enhanced listening skills and communication skills based on, some people in the music world, it's like the quality of the line. Where does the line go? It's not so much related to the notes per se, as it is what's the shape of the line. And for example, I think I'm probably getting too heady, but if we take ourselves out of the equation and we just go back to listening, and you're asking about like, how does play work in adults? When you're talking to somebody on the phone and you're wondering about sound, you're talking to a loved one on the phone. You don't even have to hear a word. All you have to hear is how they're breathing, the texture, the tone, and you know exactly what the emotional content is or how that person is feeling emotionally. And it's about intuition. It's about being open. It's about listening. And then it's about interacting and communicating. You can have a whole conversation with each other without even using a word, a whole nonverbal that goes through a whole emotional context. See that? And now I can look at you here and I can see, Latricia, you're like bouncing your head and smiling, and Jeff, now you're down there like smiling too. So there's a whole emotional content going on that listening to each other and interacting with each other. We're communicating and we're not being judgmental. So this is allowing for play. And play is about taking risks. Play is like just going for it.
Yeah, it's interesting. And Jeff is going to laugh because I brought this up in another interview with a play expert, that it really brings me back to thinking about my dog. And I feel like dogs have PhDs in play, right? Like they
are. Did you see the cover of the New York Times online yesterday?
I did not.
The Westminster show? So there's this dog that didn't win, but it's this white, furry dog that jumps over this barrier, right? And you see the seriousness in the dog leading up to, because it's slow motion, and he jumps over the barrier. And just as he's beginning to pass over it, he knows he's cleared it. He gets this big grin. And it's like he's so happy because he's playing. He's just so beautiful and playful. Cats, they smile too. All of us animals, we interact emotionally and play. Yeah, play it's about humanity.
And that contagious factor, right? Like the joy that you had in even just recapping that anecdote about the dog was palpable. And Jeff and I have been talking a lot about how important it is to schedule some play in, regardless of what your career is, that it's useful to you in ways that maybe you don't get in the here and now.
Thank you for tuning in to Shifting Schools. Let's pause our discussion to spotlight Libra HQ, a breakthrough in using AI to deepen connections within organizations. Imagine an environment where every staff member feels truly seen and valued. This is the heart of Libra's mission. Libra transforms how leaders celebrate and recognize the personal and professional milestones of their team members. It's not just about reminders. Libra's AI dives deeper, offering insight into enhanced team cohesion and promote a culture where support and acknowledgement are paramount. Picture a school where every individual is acknowledged, from work achievements to personal victories, creating a culture of appreciation in just minutes a day. In these challenging times, where the demands on educators have never been higher, Libra offers a way for school leaders to lead with true empathy and compassion, ensuring every team member feels an integral part of their community's success. Discover how Libra can revolutionize your school's culture. For a demo, contact me at jeff@shiftingschools.com. Let's build a future where every educator and staff member feels connected and valued. And now, let's get back to our conversation.
For you, your career is to some extent about play, but I'm also getting a sense it's really important to you personally. To what extent do you feel like you're only able to do the work that you do because you make time for play? Does that feel like an accurate statement?
Yeah. And as a musician, right? And as a professional saxophonist in New York, you have to keep your chops up, and you have to, there's a level of neurosis into practicing to maintain your level of creativity and expression and compete. And it can be very stressful, but there's also elements that you have to play, and playing, we can practice. So there's a whole world of practicing and really developing your chops and developing a clear intellectual perspective and on how you want to manipulate the language. When you go to a gig, what for me, I'm going there to play, and I'm putting myself on the line, and I'm going to take risks. And this kind of coincides with something else. I'm dyslexic, and I've had terrible, and I'm 66, almost 67, and it's only just this past year that I've realized the implication and because I came up in the 60s and 70s when nobody really knew anything about dyslexia. And I have terrible problems with the mechanics of language, whether it's English or it's music. I have a beautiful piano. I've written concert music for classical musicians. I've written jazz tunes. I've written music for film. I've done a whole lot. I've worked with sound. And I've studied, believe me, I've studied your training. But if somebody were to go play the piano behind me now and press two notes, it would be very difficult for me to tell you what interval it is. And I just don't compute that. It's like the other day, I'm looking at a spelling bee with my wife. The New York Times has this little spelling bee thing. And I looked at it and I knew exactly what the word was, because the pangram, if you get all of them together. And I said, in a second, I said, oh, that's blah, blah, blah. But I couldn't spell it. And I said, how do you spell this? To put it into the, so we have these, everybody's got their own kind of like deficits in how they learn or whatever. And I think that for me, since it's a personal thing, you're asking me about how I work with play, it's, in my practice time when nobody's hearing me, I'm practicing very technical stuff. And when I go to play, I can't organize stuff when I've done it in practice schedule. I can't all of a sudden call it out on a gig. And I don't want to call it out on the gig. I want to be responding to what the drummer's playing and what the piano's playing, what the bass player's got to say. And then because we're developing our oral communication. And it's about play. It's the beautiful thing about being a musician is that when we go to work, we go to play. And you don't want to be practicing on the bandstand. You want to be playing. You want to be sharing your joy of the music with the audience because that's what brings them in. An audience really wants to hear what you have to say. What's your content? What's your emotional content? And just to bring it back down to creative sound play, because there's a whole aspect of that now where providing young people with the opportunity to make different kinds of sounds and different kinds of pitches and different kinds of volumes and different lengths enable them for their own sense of creativity and how they want to play with sound. And when they start to do that, all of a sudden they're building their executive function skills, their active listening skills, their inhibitory control, their working memory, because they're thinking, okay, how do I want to do that kind of different sound? I have a whole sound activity that's about if you're being deliberate and intentional about how you may want to make sound, you can make a painting and make the painting with the intent of how you want it to sound. And then it becomes a roadmap for your fellow students to sound it out. And you can conduct as a child, as a 4-year-old, as a 3-year-old, as a 5-year-old, you can have your peers play your piece. And imagine what that does for a child, for their sense of their self-esteem as a leader, and for the children who are playing their piece, for their self-esteem. And talk about play and learning. There's a teacher who was talking about this who had been working with sound and really got it. And she was saying that she had a child in her class who was very quiet and very shy, and they thought they were going to have to do an evaluation with her to see if she had autism. And because there's a whole part of this whole process of playing and interaction is where children get the opportunity to, because it's based into play, to conduct each other. This little girl got up in front of her peers and conducted them in terms of volume and quiet and loud and to making different sounds, to the point where her peers, when she wanted to get them going loud, they were getting her really going. Mm-hmm. And they got loud and she got loud and all of this stuff. And it enabled her to break through her shyness because all she was shy. And as it turns out, she started helping other children get through their shyness because everybody was communicating, listening to her, watching her. The kids wanted to help her. She wanted to conduct them. Everybody was just playing with each other. They were just playing without anything else, of just following the rules, or the rule was, she's the conductor. She's the maestra. Follow her. And when it's your turn, you become the maestro or the maestro. They'll follow you. And so if we look at play and sound, all of a sudden, if we just deal with pitch, volume, and duration, create this zone where that focal point of how someone wants to make that sound, whether they're 3-year-olds or whether they're 45-year-olds working on a program together, if they can get outside their heads that it's like, this is valid or that's not valid or whatever, and think about what's the role here? What are we trying to do? What's the mission? What kind of opportunity are we trying to make for ourselves? Where do we want to go from? We want a piece that's going to be 2 minutes long, that's going to have a beginning, middle, and end. And we want to have something be nice and smooth, and we want to have a different texture in it. It's maybe aggressive, and then it ends in a resolve. And then how do we build that? So play ends up becoming this whole other relationship of how do we want to stretch our minds? On how do we want to encourage each other to maybe somebody's got a really beautiful bass sound. I'm just throwing this out. Who knows maybe somebody loves to dance. Maybe somebody there's the Howard Gardner thing of the multiple intelligences. So it's in plugging into the strengths of the group of people that are present.
I love that. And as you're talking about this, and I can just, as listeners are listening to this and thinking to themselves as educators and educational leaders, how do we bring more of this into our classrooms? What would be some of the next steps that an educator could take or educational leaders could take and what you refer to as a sound-based pedagogy? If this is coming out over the summer where teachers have some time to dig in to do some professional learning of their own, what would be some next steps for educators who want to learn more about sound-based pedagogy to maybe infuse into their practice as they head into next school year?
There's the book that's going to be, my book is coming out on June 6th, and it's a very comprehensive book about sound and about how to communicate with it, how to think about it, how to be open to it. I have a quick start guide, which is just for your listeners, I guess the book is Creative Sound Play for Young Learners, and it's on Routledge. And it's about transition times, it's building communities, it's social emotional learning and executive function skills, and it's geared towards basically pre-K. But sound, like I said earlier, can be used in many different configurations. And if you're working with third graders and their level of sophistication, you might work in different capacities. But sound is a profound tool because it works with any subject matter, right? There are, for example, kids with language delays who have been aggressive because they're having trouble understanding, communicating what their needs are now, because they're given the opportunity to make funny sounds. Because they're given those opportunities, they're able to communicate and use their creativity with their fellow students. So they're not aggressive anymore. So for any teacher who's really thinking, I can promote myself, I have a website and I have videos, I have a whole curriculum where the teachers can get a certificate if they finish the test at the end, or I do coaching sessions. The first thing a teacher has to do is start to develop their active listening skills, listen to what's happening, think about what the sound is, if that sound is high or low. Take a moment and just, is that bird high? Is that a little chihuahua or is that a German shepherd? Just to identify what the sounds are. And it comes back to that pitch, volume, and duration. And as you start to do that, and you can start to paint pictures of sound, like sounds tell stories. Silence is also very important. Silence is relief from sound, right? Silence helps to build tension. So as I choose to make a point, you can really play with silence. And then silence, when you have too much silence and it becomes deafening, you got to make sound. So if a teacher really wants to start working with sound, start thinking about how you might want to sound out a story, how you want to sound the alphabet, how you want to think about, you want to teach your children about phonemic awareness. When you start playing with that, all of a sudden the kids love it, and they're going to make their own things. They're going to jump on their own stuff. They're going to come up with all different types of ways. So it's really about thinking. We talk about pedagogy, right? And I'm an intuitive teaching artist. I'm an intuitive musician. It's about listening, and then how you want to infuse it with stuff. It's how you want to play. It's how you're willing to allow yourself to play.
It's interesting, Hayes, as I listen to you, I think back to our opening question about myths about play. And I think this conversation has busted an assumption that I think is out there around play, that play is always energy building, when actually it can be energy releasing, and play can be very calming, because some of the examples that you gave about deeply listening and noticing sound, you have to be still in order to do that. And then it also makes you appreciate your environment.
Mackin Educational Resources has once again partnered with us for our summer mini-series. Thank you to Mackin for continuing to be a partner of the Shifting Schools community. Their new product, Mackin Vision, is the future of library management. Created with your students' need at the forefront, Mackin Vision offers a user-friendly interface that simplifies navigation, making it easy for students to find what they need. This state-of-the-art system includes features like intuitive browsing, secure multi-level access, multimedia searching, and whole school rostering. Additionally, it has a teacher library portal, aggregated dashboard, live analytics, and centralized reporting. Mackin Vision is designed to streamline your school's library operations. Learn more about how Mackin Vision can benefit your school at mackin.com/MackinVision. Schedule your free demonstration and experience the future today.
You mentioned earlier that your work is not just about young learners. The book, of course, is directed at that audience, but that you've seen value in creative sound play with us older folks as well. For somebody who's listening and they're thinking, what? Meetings can often be very boring. What if I try to infuse a little bit of creative sound play into a meeting? Do you have some thoughts on what maybe that would look like? What comes to mind for me is even just the notion of what's an everyday, ordinary object that you love the sound of. Like I schedule my coffee maker to go off in the morning. I love that sound. It's a great way to start my day. And it just dawned on me, I'd love to know it's like a mundane thing, but the sound of that brings you joy. So maybe that's not like the most playful example, but I could see if I were working with a team and I maybe didn't want to dive deep into creative sound play right away. You mentioned you've got to build up folks' openness to it. Do you have any other thoughts on what's a way for a group of adults to begin that journey with one another with some creative sound play? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, there's a bunch of games. One game is to count together, and one person goes 1, somebody else goes 2, somebody else will go 3, and leave the space. So you're putting in the space in between. And then when 2 people say the same number, then you have to start at 1 again. And see where you want to put your number, where do you want to take your risk in your space, and see how high you can go. It's a very interesting, and there's tension, and it's fun, and you start doing it. The most important thing about keeping it is keeping an open thing and not being too controlling. So for example, let's say you want to say, okay, we're going to clap on 1, we're going to stomp our foot on 2, and we're going to count to 4. And we're going to completely keep it repetitive. So keep repeating it, keep repeating the counting, but we're going to clap on 1, we're going to stomp on 2, and we're going to bark on 3. And 4 is going to be silent. So it's going to be 1, 2, roof, 4, 1, 2, roof, 4, 1. Whoop, I messed up. So and how complicated do you want to get? And who can get most complicated? And not try to correct everybody, right? So how you do this, and I wanted to say something before, and I had spaced it out, and about a teacher's role. And a teacher's role, or even somebody leading this, is about providing opportunity. The whole thing is about providing opportunity and license, so that if we're deciding that you have a group of 10 adults, really smart adults, I shouldn't even forget about the value judgment on smart or whatever. You got 10 adults in a room. You want them to, the sound piece, how are they going to start? Do you want to go around and have different textures? Do you want to have there's a group going, and then you could write this down and then have a piece that has that. And the success of the piece is how well you decided. We really want that first part to start out quietly, and then it gets louder. And then we have the zoom, and everybody's going to do the zoom, and only one person is going to go beep. So you're thinking about how you want to organize. So it's about playing with the textures. It's about playing with how you want to put it together. And anything goes. So most importantly is that we get rid of the judgments, right? Like I said, smart. It doesn't have to be smart. It just has to be people who care, caring people. People who in general are smart. It's how you want to provide the opportunity. What do you want to do? It's wide open. So in terms of dealing with how do you want to start? Well, starting could just be everybody saying their name. My name is Hayes, but some people call me Hazy, so I have 2 different syllables. Hayes, a lot of space. Z. Trisha, say your name.
Oh gosh, it's hard to follow you with that because I'm going to go for it here.
No
judgment. No judgment.
Yeah.
Trisha.
Great. Jeff, what are you going to do?
I don't know. Mine's just 1 syllable, so it's hard. It's just
no.
Jeff.
I don't want to hear that. Well, come on, Jeff. What do you want to do?
I guess I have 2 names. It would be Jeff, or it'd be Jeffrey.
There we go. That's a good one.
Cool, but you could also go.
Yeah, quiet is not my nature, but yeah, that's a good one.
Jeff, I'm Jeffrey.
That'd probably be more it. Yeah.
But so right, what is this? Imagine just having this openness. You guys are beautiful, and you're exactly like. No offense, I'm not. No, but like teachers are going to say, I don't know. I don't do this. I'm not. And the thing that's so incredible is that I have teachers talking about this, and even on my website, I just put it up on a thing about tips about how important it is that you don't take yourself so seriously. How important it is get out of your comfort zone, because that's how through play, when you come out of your comfort zone, all of a sudden we grow, right? We really grow in massive ways, in beautiful ways. And if we provide ourselves the opportunity, it's about opportunity and license. When you provide the opportunity to a child to sit back and listen, and actively listen, close your eyes and hear everything. Spend a minute just listening. It's mindful. And then you discuss what it is. And you discuss what are the different things that we heard and they heard, and how did it make them feel? Because sounds can make you feel one way or the other. Some are soothing and some are not. And then you provide those children the same opportunities to make different kinds of sounds and to make them together. 3-year-olds come in after doing having those opportunities and those experiences. And when the room is really loud, the 3-year-olds are saying, it's too loud in here. And what they're saying, it's too loud, I can't focus. It's hard to learn, I want to learn. But it's because these 3-year-olds have been given the opportunity to make sound, to make loud and quiet and different kinds of sounds, that they understand, they internalize that what they do matters. And that's the same thing for an executive, for an adult.
I love that. Hayes, thank you so much for spending time with us today. Hayes Greenfield, the founder of Creative Sound Play, the author of the book, Creative Sound Play for Young Learners. It has been an absolute pleasure to be silly with you, to be playful with you today on the podcast. I think Trisha and I have unlocked another way to play even with each other on the podcast and saying each other's names, Trisha, as we go.
I have to say, it's been a pleasure to do this. And I myself have gained, you guys were great. It was good for me. I learned a lot.
Awesome. Thank you, my friend. We really appreciate your time, your energy, and for all that you do for educators. We will make sure there are links to the book, links to your website for others to follow, to reach out and contact you if they have any questions. Thank you so much for spending time with us today and talking about sound and being playful.
Thank you.